advantage of this situation to make a lot of money and to do a lot of stuff.
So your opinion is that they should go straight into election, forget about a
Should that
transition
straight,
government?
we should go straight to the election, and the international community should pressure the government, pressure all the sector to have a free election. Because personally, I think that the Asian people should be able to vote and decide who need to be his mayor, his senator, his deputy, his president, everything.
Okay.
But
Yeah, that's
I
about it.
think
Well,
that it's important. It's important to be vigilant, to pressure the system just to have a free election. You understand? The person who got more vote will win. This is my position.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you for that update, Cyrus. You know, we really need to keep our eye on what's happening to our CARICOM brother Haiti and to exert, as you say, you know, any influence we can to see that situation regularized and for Haiti to settle down. We have a guest this evening, you know, Roy, we haven't forgotten you, you know. I'm going to ask you to bring your camera down a little bit so we can see a little bit more of your face. You know, our Facebook friends are there out in their numbers as usual, saying good evening. And Rose says it's snow is coming down in Toronto. You know, they're feeling it up there as well. But we want to get to Roy, and I am going to let Adriana take charge of this part of the conversation, you know, because I think she possibly has more information on it than any one of us. Even if we think we know a lot, I'm sure she knows more. And you need to unmute.
Mic is muted. Okay.
Yeah, you have to unmute.
I know a little bit more, but certainly Rora knows everything. So this past week, we've had some action by our minibus and omnibus, whatever you want to call them, operators. They've withdrawn services. It started in the north of the island in Georgetown. And well, you know, we normally see windward and leeward. So it started on the windward side of the island, and some of the bands on the leeward side joined in. Right, Royan?
I'm getting some on somebody's line. I'm not sure.
You're getting
something like that.
Good night, everyone.
Yes, good night. Good night. I'm just trying to get rid of a little disturbance that I'm hearing in the audio. I'm not sure whose mic it's coming from.
I'm wondering if it's mine.
I know it's not mine because when mine is causing.
I definitely think it was Adriana's.
I don't hear.
Okay.
Oh, it's Adriana's? Okay. All right. So we're getting an update on the minibus situation. Here is one of those things where all the different islands have their different terms for it. Some places minibus, minivan, taxi, but whatever you call it, same thing, public transportation. And there certainly has been an issue with it in St. Vincent for the past couple of weeks. I would say it's about 2 weeks now, right?
Well, you know, things exploded
this week. Exploded at that time. But Roy is involved in it, not just looking at it from the outside. So bring us up to date on what brought us to where we are, where we saw the buses parked.
Yeah, as Adriana said, of course, in the fight against COVID-19, the government of St. Vincent initially reduced the capacity of minibus from 18 passengers to 12 fare-paying passengers. And this happened in January, and shortly thereafter, they tightened the protocols further and slashed the capacity to half, taking it down to 7 fare paying passengers. Quite frankly, with a reduction in demand and a reduction in capacity, it's a double whammy for the operators. With the shift system for some workers, some industries, and the fact that schools obviously are now virtual, and people are trying their best not to travel unless it's essential travel. It means that the demand for public transportation is down. And even when you may be looking like you're having a good day, then your capacity is also down 50%. So it created a very significant economic challenge for our operators. And the result of that saw our organization, Vinters, made representation to the government for consideration on some items that we think could bring relief to our operators, including the reduction of fuel, subsidy. Most of our operators are of the view that going back to 12 fare paying passengers is the ideal solution. And where mathematically and economically that may be true, we thought it wasn't a prudent discussion point to include in our submission simply because COVID-19 or the management of COVID-19 requires to be as far apart as we can. Naturally, though, social distancing in a minibus is almost impossible or non-existent. But during the discussion of the items we submitted, the government gave an undertaking to revisit the capacity, of course, in consultation with the Ministry of Health. And we will hear from them soon as to whether or not favorable consideration was given on the capacity side of things. Like any organization, more specifically in St. Vincent, Vinters is still a very young organization representing the minibus sector. But like any organization in its infancy stage, when you have a fraction of the overall operators as your members, you're going to have discourse and difference in opinion about how you handle a crisis such as this. And we've seen that materialize throughout St. Vincent, where some operators felt like the number one thing is capacity, and if you don't get that, then we need to pull off the road. While it's not an action that was sanctioned by us as an organization, I'm in solidarity with them because I understand clearly the economic impact. And as a show of solidarity, I myself decided to take my 2 buses off the road. So the dilemma where we are now is basically we are awaiting the government's response tomorrow. And that should tell us a few things. One, what level of subsidy they'll provide to us, for how long, and whether or not they'll increase our capacity higher than the 7 that we currently have in place. Once we have that response, then I think we can share the response with our members and operators and get their feedback about the adequacy of the government's offer and decide how we go from there.
How does the general executive feel? Because you say that as a minibus owner, you are in solidarity with the minibus drivers and owners who took protest action this past week, but feel.
Yeah, the rest of the executive are in solidarity as well. I mean, we are all bus owners, we are not distant from the industry at all. So we all have a stake in the industry, and we understand the economics surrounding the tightening of the protocol. I think what we find is that we hear some outrageous arguments about why minibus should not be supported, ranging from whether or not we pay income tax and pay NIS, whether or not we are special people. it's amazing how we can find reasons to support a position without really thinking through thoroughly other situations in St. Vincent. For example, should minibus owners say, well, farmers receive subsidized fertilizers, they receive seedlings, they receive young chick, they have a farmer support company set up for concessionary lending. What's so special about farmers? They get 75% duty free on vehicles. What's so special about farmers? Then I asked the question, does farmers pay income tax and NIS? How many of them do?
Well, let me ask a question. These comments about whether or not the bus drivers are special and all of these comments, are they coming from the people that you want to meet with, then from the administration, from members of government, or just the supporters, the usual people who run behind political parties and whatever?
That's the general sentiments of policymakers.
I saw an article today that quoted the Prime Minister saying that if he were to, give some of these things that the drivers, the operators are asking for, it would eventually affect the salaries of teachers.
Hold on, if he were to give?
Well, you know how it's done here? It would eventually affect the salaries of teachers who are now providing the tools for the online work that they're doing, the virtual work that they're doing. And I found that so interesting because there was this long debate, or there is a long debate, about whether or not teachers should be given something as well, seeing that we are now covering the overheads. And people were shutting that down. So I found it quite interesting that this paper is now quoting the PM as saying, to give to the omnibus, you're going to take away from teachers who more or less covering the overheads of the work that they're doing now. Roran, did you see that?
I did. I saw that article, and I mean, of course, it's amusing when you see those kind of writing because they're all in trying to win public support and mobilize your base to support their perspective.
But beyond public support, I think it's pushing division.
Apart from the fact that it's written in a news publication, this is something that was said these are things that were said by the Prime Minister on his Wednesday morning program. So the question is, what is the purpose of these sorts of statements, right? Because he says, for example, to reduce fuel would be to affect the salaries of teachers, police officers, and nurses. How does that factor into the situation where a minibus driver does not have the capacity to feed its family?
So
if I want to
people.
Hold a second here. So you're gonna go into the wage bill and look for all the teachers, policemen, and nurses, and do whatever you're gonna do with their salary. But the public sector workforce will not be affected.
No. And around this time.
But it's also two different categories of people. The minibus owners and drivers are self-employed people. They don't have a fixed salary at the end of the month, regardless to any increase or decrease of anything.
But one of the things that strikes me most is the fact that, to me, those things push division among the populace. That's the first thing. And I kept asking the question, how is it nobody is looking at the senior civil servants and the ministers of government, for instance, who are still collecting things such as entertainment allowances and transport allowances and all of these things, especially those in the Ministry of Education, my ministry, that will be collecting transportation allowances, and schools are closed. So there's no school for them to visit. So how come nobody is saying to them, okay, we're in a pandemic, because that's what they're saying. We're in a pandemic, the bus drivers are being, totally ridiculous. So why nobody is saying to them, all right, we're in a pandemic, you don't have a school to visit, give up your transportation allowance, give up your entertainment allowance. Nobody is saying that. So it is very strange that the, Vincentian public are being pitted against each other and we're not seeing it. So.
Yeah, but I saw a list of things, Roy, that the van drivers were asking for, like tax breaks, concessions, 50% concession going forward, stuff like that. Those requests that have been made, how realistic are they really that any of them are going to be met?
Well, we've already seen that there's a strong opposition to reducing the fuel, and that is like 40%. That's a direct cost. That's like 40% of the operational cost of a minibus, daily operational cost. And the minibus businesses in our island is purely a speculative business. You jump in your bus in the mornings, you drive down the road. There's no guarantee you're meeting passengers, and even more so now. There's no guarantee that you're meeting passengers because demand is down. So, but in order to speculate, you have to consume fuel. Yeah. That's just the nature of our business. So if I were to talk about gasoline for a bit, and nobody in St. Vincent would even pay attention to this aspect of it. During all of the pandemic, from March last year to now, I don't believe that the government lost a single cent on gasoline. Mm-hmm. My understanding of the cost construct and how they make money is on levy of every imperial gallon. That's my understanding of it. And if that is the case, it means that unless the government reduce the levy they're charging on diesel and gasoline, they would not have lost any money during the pandemic.
Yeah, but a reduction in the price of fuel would not just be for the van drivers. Would that have to be across the board?
Yeah, absolutely. But however, if you don't want to provide that across the board, then you say to the bus drivers, well, we'll provide you with gas vouchers at the end of the month. There's a way to do it. There's a way to do it. The challenge I have is that there is no desire to come up with innovative ways of providing relief to the sector. That is my disappointment. Right. So even when we make innovative submissions, they are shut down as being ridiculous. So when we ask, for example, for a 50% reduction in our vehicle license fee, which by the way is the highest across the OECS. I mean, St. Lucia virtually have no road tax. Grenada is like $375. We paying almost $800 for a minibus license. So when we ask for temporary relief on that, how ridiculous could that be if we are in a crisis? And might I dare say, if things are so hard, if we are in a crisis, things are so hard, it's so bad, why are you increasing customs surcharge?
But so far, you have submitted that letter outlining your request to the relevant authorities. When do you expect to get some kind of response?
Tomorrow. They've promised to provide us with a written response by tomorrow. And in that response, we expect to hear definitively on the amount of subsidy they'll provide, for how long, and whether or not our capacity would be increased.
And you're sure you're getting a written response this time?
Well, I asked for a written response, and the Prime Minister have given an undertaking that he would provide a written response to the Cabinet Secretary. So I'm expecting a written response.
And what will you do if your demands are not met?
Well, I think the membership would make a decision on how they want to proceed. Like I said, the overwhelming amount of operators are looking for a solution with respect to capacity. Now, it's It's obviously easy to build a narrative that this is COVID and why we want to place so much people in a bus, etc., etc. However, we were the first organization in March, April of 2020 to write to the Minister of Transport and ask for a public policy of mandatory wearing of masks in public transportation. And we were scoffed after for asking for that. In fact, it was strongly opposed. And it's for me, it's heartbreaking because I believe that if we were all the adapters to wearing masks from a year ago, perhaps the exposure we suffered in November, December may not have been so severe. That's my take on that. However, I think potentially you can still see some industrial action, some withdrawal of services. If we are not happy with what the government presents.
But as we mentioned earlier, the van drivers, operators, conductors to a large extent are self-employed. So when you withdraw your service, it cuts off your earnings, your income, and leaves you to find a way to sort out your business. So how long can this, how sustainable is the withdrawal of service in this fight to get what you really want? And also in terms of increasing the numbers of passengers, putting them back up, how do you foresee that will be dealt with in managing the spread of COVID-19 at the same time?
And therein lies the dilemma that we face when it comes to the issue of the capacity, because ultimately there's a sense of responsibility with the government to make sure that they do all they can to contain the virus. And at the same time, as businessmen and women, we too have to ensure that the expenses that we are committed to on a daily basis can be met. And at 7 passengers, it is impossible to do so, virtually. And if we were to approach it strictly as businessmen, we'll take all the buses off the road because it's unprofitable to work with 7 passengers on a daily basis. It's just impossible. So I think there has to be some compromise. It's really going to come down to a strong enforcement of the protocol. People wear masks, sanitization, and allow the capacity to go back to 12. We didn't feel like we should have put it on the table.
Sorry, Brian.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, Ryan, if are you in conversation with other bus drivers and bus cooperatives and bus companies throughout the Eastern Caribbean, because they're all facing that problem. They're all confronted with that same challenge. But there's some really innovative ideas that are now being discussed. I know in Dominica, a number of us have actually suggested these ideas to the 3 bus associations. It sounds like you have data, because you did mention 40% of your cost, your operating cost is fuel. So you must have data. So I'm going to ask, what makes up your clientele in terms of the sharing between local residents and visitors? Now, you don't have many visitors right now, but in normal times, what provides you with your major source of revenue? School children, adult travelers, visitors, and those are things that a lot of bus associations don't pay attention to. That's one, and we are asking them and helping them to do that. Another thing is certain routes are oversubscribed. They're popular, they tend to generate more income, and so there's a lot of buses running. Unless there's some regulation, either by the state or better by the association, to sort of to sequence the buses using that route in a way that optimizes carrying capacity and gives you your turn, so that you of making something more than the competing, jostling and jockeying and so forth that takes place in most of our islands. And a third thing, so we've suggested that, and they're looking at it, because we have many routes that are oversubscribed, too many buses, and others that are undersubscribed. So if there's some rationalizing of the use of buses, that could work. And thirdly, we've suggested to them, this may be the time, Roy Run, for the owners of vehicles that are using their vehicles as their business to make a serious step forward towards renewable energy driven buses, getting away from fossil fuel. And now may be the time to begin the transition to that, so that 40% fuel cost begins to be addressed. The commitment by the state, you can claim that they have a commitment because they signed all the necessary international agreements, etc. There is certainly money available for countries that wish to convert to renewable energy driven vehicles. The technology is now readily available. And what it would do, it would reduce the element of confrontation and conflict and create an opportunity for the bus owners as business people to engage the state machinery in a transition which might take 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but it would begin to sort of see the buses and vehicles being brought in or vehicles being converted. And it's not just renewable energy in terms of, photovoltaics and so. Trinidad right next door, they have vehicles with dual energy sources. They have fuel and they have liquefied natural gas. And so if we step back a bit from the negotiating position, the classic negotiating position, we may find, that there are some real opportunities that are presenting themselves now to us, all of us. And maybe this is something at an OECS level, the bus operators could come together and make some kind of sub-regional or regional submission. I really feel this could work if there was a serious effort made in directions like that. That's my suggestion. It's not, I don't expect you to react. It's just ideas that we're talking to your colleagues here in Dominica about a certain level of.
Well, it's interesting that you raised that point, because one of the things we discussed when we met with the policymakers is that I think it's time for a total reform of the public transportation sector in St. Vincent, without a doubt. And some of the elements that you've mentioned there with respect to the oversubscribing of routes, trade and competitive nature of it, those are some things we have to look at seriously if we're going to create some sort of equitable opportunity for all operators within the industry. And that's going to require a collaborative effort between owners, operators, the organization, and policymakers, providing that policymakers are willing to have the conversation, because generally, from what we've seen in St. Vincent, that is usually the hardest thing to get done.
I just want to come in here and say that while everything that Ati says is good and useful and definitely the way we should be going, we also have to have an appreciation for the fact that the Vincentian economy is bad. It is terrible. People are barely surviving. Whether we want to admit that and face that reality or not, it is a reality. People are struggling to survive. And so there has to be an immediate situation, something that is immediate, where we can help these privately employed people who basically run our transport system, because there's no national transport system, right? So there has to be something put in place to assist our minibus drivers and owners to survive for the next year while the pandemic is in place. Because the other issue is talking about moving our minibuses to away from fossil fuel, we still have a national energy industry, electricity, energy, and the national entity ZINLEC, which provides core electricity and stuff for consumers, heavily dependent upon fossil fuel, and for where we still charge a fuel surcharge, which is another issue we have in our society, which makes utility bills extremely high. So we're talking about moving minibuses away from fossil fuel, but we're not, we also need to talk about moving away our energy supply to households from fossil fuels as well, and reducing the overall cost to the consumer, because these minibus drivers are also faced with the situation where they have utility bills that they simply cannot pay, even when things are good. So I can't imagine the situation now. So what we need is, and I totally agree with Ati about getting in contact with your equals across the region and getting ideas and trying to move the minibus system forward into the 21st century. But there needs to be realistic solutions now, and the government needs to get on board to help these people to survive.
Except to
I
say
think
that.
Dwyer wanted to say
Go ahead,
something.
Afi. I'll wait for Afi. Let him
Okay.
finish the point.
Okay.
Go ahead, Afi.
I would say what I'm concerned about is
Come a little closer to the mic.
what we may be seeing as doing something quickly to help out a bad situation, which incidentally the situation in all the Eastern Caribbean countries is exactly the same. There's no economy. Okay, one can almost say that. So the question is, what do you do? Do you do an emergency thing? Make sure that people have some, the bus drivers have some money. How, and then run the risk of not being able to sustain that to any point where it will make sense, any point where there is a transition to, a new dispensation in transport, which is really where we need to go. So I think we really have to bite the bullet and say, look, the solutions we seek have to have an element of short term, but they must have a strong core element of medium and long term. Otherwise, we're just spinning top in mud, So you have to do something right away. And something you could do right away is, rationalize the routes. Work with the associations to sort of rationalize the routes so that there is a more equitable opportunity for earning. You can look at the fuel cost, you can look at the spare parts cost, you can look at the servicing costs, etc. All of these things, the cost of licensing. Yeah, these are immediate, quick things, but these are not solutions. These are kind of just, okay, guy, hold on, hold straight. But the real solutions must accompany those shorter term suggestions that I think are valid, but on their own are not solutions.
Yeah, they're not solutions, definitely. And you're right. We need to look at stopping the gap, but looking ahead while doing so. You're absolutely right.
Yes, Roy, nice meeting you. I disagree. Maybe this is just semantics, but I disagree with Afi and Guevara. When a man is starving, a Vienna sausage is a solution. He might not know where the next piece of food gonna come from, but it's a solution because he is in emergency mode. I'm agreeing with what Afi has said, This is not just an opportunity, we say it all the time here, but an obligation for reformation, transformation. COVID must be transformative or transformational, whatever the adjective is. Let me ask Roy a couple of questions. One, I don't think you answered Afi's questions as to whether you were networking with your counterparts in other islands and who are your passengers? Your
Okay,
answers
so-
will lead me to other questions.
So the answer to the networking is yes. I've been in touch with the Grenada Association,
And who else?
St. Lucia, Barbados, and Barbados Connect has give me a commitment that they would also make a connect with the Trinidad president as well. And for sure, we'll try to make our way into the other islands to make that connect. Because you're absolutely right, they're important that we understand what's happening within the OECS, especially given that we have a single currency and in most cases, same market construct and economic construct as well. In terms of who are our passengers, we understand that very well. School children, I think, account for a little more than 50% of our revenue. So when school is out,
you all don't have school buses in St. Vincent.
we have some school. We have some school buses, but those school buses are not as attractive as public transportation.
Okay, go ahead then. Go ahead. So school is out. School is out, so that's down.
Yeah. So when school is out, it's not only down for the school children, but all of the other movements surrounding the movement of children. You know, the parents taking their children to school, picking them up, etc. So it's high traffic when school is in session.
You carry people working in the businesses in Kingstown and so forth. In other words, you're feeding the workforce into the economy every day.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
We had
Another question for you. Another question for you. You know, the price of oil, well, it's now coming back up.
Yeah,
but over the last year and a half or so, it went down enormously.
Yes.
Did the price at the pump go down in St. Vincent?
Yes, it did. It went down about a year ago.
A year ago?
Yes. It went down in and around April, March, April.
And where is it now? Down or going back up?
It's going back up. It's now $8.50 for diesel and $10.50 for gasoline.
Okay. All right. And the reason I ask is, if the government is carrying this saving to the consumer, then that's good. They don't do that in Antigua. And Antiguans have been crying like hell about it, not getting anywhere about it. I would be more than happy to connect you with a couple of your counterparts here in St. Kitts. And we can exchange particulars. I give you my phone number, and it's a WhatsApp number. And I could give you now.
Yeah, sure.
Whatever Beverly guides me to do. Do it now, Beverly?
You can put it in the chat.
But he's not in the chat?
Yes,
he would be in the chat.
Okay, all right.
Not in that chat, in this chat.
Yeah, not in the WhatsApp chat, in the chat on the show now.
The chat below.
The chat
on the same screen that you're looking at.
No, I don't have it. I don't have that on my monitor.
All right.
I don't. But what the reason I think it would be good to speak to the guys here is because long ago, then in this COVID thing, they negotiated with the government, and a good package was worked out for them. The bus drivers are like the bloodstream of the economy. They move the people around. You can't allow them to park up. You cannot allow them to park up because people are not going.
Feel that way.
But people are not going to go to work. How are they going to get to work?
But you live in St. Kitts, where you guys have money overflowing.
Don't say that. People might believe you.
That is a fact. You have money. Your cup is full and overflowing.
But Adriana just said.
And you know why?
Adriana just said, the citizenship program, but we don't have money overflowing. Adriana just said that people are having.
Might believe you.
People might believe him. She said that people have travel allowance. Education officials have travel allowance to go to schools. Take it away. The ministers must take a 20% cut in salary. The allowances and so must be cut. Show it from the top, cut it, and subsidize the bus drivers. Today. Yeah, I mean, come on, man.
I asked the question, if things are so bad, if it is so hard, and the notion and language coming from policymakers that everybody is feeling it. But that's not accurate.
How are the policymakers feeling it?
That's what I'm saying. It's not accurate because I don't see them giving up anything. But you're asking the minibus to give up 50% of their revenue?
No, well, I don't agree with you on the 12 passengers because it's okay to make a living, but you can't make a living if you're dead. So 12 in an 18-seater, 12 in an 18-seater is not going to work at a time when you have so much community spread with the virus in St. Vincent.
Yeah,
that is not going to work. So they have to find a way to make 7 or 8 economical for you. They have to find a way because the country, let me guess, how many you call them minibuses down there?
Yeah, we have about 600, 650 max.
650. And in ordinary times, about how many people you move a day?
I would say we move at least 60% of the workforce for sure.
And your workforce is how much?
Um,
you have about what, 90, 100,000 in St. Vincent?
about 25,000. Yeah.
Now your workforce is bigger than that, man.
Maybe.
Your workforce is bigger than that, man. Your workforce in St. Vincent has to be 50,000, 40, 50,000.
No. The
How could it be
workforce,
50,000 when the population is 90,000?
Hold on a minute. What's the population?
How about 90,000?
108,000. Yeah.
So your
We have about 40,000 children.
Your workforce should not be less than 40,000.
We have about 40,000 children.
oh, Bernie,
that leaves 70.
Dwyer
And we have about 25% unemployment.
That's what I was going to ask you. The rest must be unemployment. The point is, if you're moving 25,000 people a day, the government has to find a way to keep you moving. It has to find a way to keep you moving.
Yeah.
So I'm going to in our WhatsApp chat, I'm going to give everybody there has my number. So somebody can give you my number and I will connect you with 1 or 2 of the bus leaders here. And they could tell you how they did it and what they did. Because all of those things, subsidies and all of those things, reduction in tariffs and so forth, a whole package was worked out for them. They're not entirely happy.
But he alluded to thinking about transformation during this period and thinking long-term solution. I think it's one of the reasons why we made the plug for duty-free concession on buses, because in St. Vincent, most of our buses are between 16 to 20 years old.
Well, you don't have the money now to buy new buses, do you? Say no.
No, but
because Ralph is listening.
It's being transcribed.
That is why that's more of a long-term solution. But one that says, in order to reduce our operational costs, we need to move to newer buses.
Yeah.
In order to provide a better service to the public, we need to move to newer buses.
Which is a cost.
Sure.
Exactly.
Which is a cost.
But if we are getting a duty-free concession for say a period of 2 years, we are allowing operators to make that plan to upgrade their vehicles during that period.
Well, you see, the economics has a lot to do with common sense, At least the economics I learned, which was in a shop selling saltfish and snout and rice and flour. Okay? The old vehicles will have more downtime. They'll be less efficient. And remember that you feed the economy with 25,000 people moving every day. So you are, well, I mean, you're an absolutely critical player in the economy. Yes, not a lot of action is taking place, but there'll be less if they don't help you. So those who can afford to move to new vehicles, I mean, as Afi said, do a plan, maybe a 5-year plan. So by year 5, people are going electric. You know what I mean? But you all have to get help. You have. I will listen with bated breath to hear what comes out from tomorrow's statement.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Will
we
paralyze the
are all
country.
curious and anxious.
yeah.
How the traveling public reacting?
Oh, we have mixed reaction. There's a lot of voice in support, and I think it's probably because we also just came off of the heels of an election as well, and you know that our country is split down the middle in terms of politics. So, you know, there's a lot of voice of support, and also you know a lot of expression of dissatisfaction of service and so forth, and the usual responses to the Prime Minister leading in a direction of public sympathy for sure, for not giving up anything.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that Dwyer can carve out some kind of liaison towards a solution. Definitely a solution is needed. Grenada went through a similar impasse after the COVID-19 because the state was subsidizing the buses, actually paying for the buses to take people to work during the initial period of lockdown and curfew and all that good stuff. And then,
Well,
you know, that stopped suddenly. And the bus operators found themselves unable to make ends meet, just the same as you guys in Vincent. And they took strike action, they met with the government, they worked out something. But one thing that happened in Grenada is that the numbers on the buses went back up. But thankfully for Grenada, the COVID-19 spread is not there. As a matter of fact, we're still at zero infections, zero active infections up to yesterday. You know, so the COVID-19 spread in Grenada is managed totally differently. So even with the numbers of buses gone back up, there has been no spread and the risk is still very low as far as that goes. So something can be done and something has to be done at the same time. We do not want people to get sick because that's not helping anybody at all.
No.
Yep. So we will all be tuned in as much as we can to hear the response and to see the letter which you get, whatever you get in writing. We're hoping to see it so that we can scrutinize the one you receive just as we scrutinize sent out. Right, Roy?
Yeah. Okay, Bev.
Yeah, I hope. I do hope so.
Yeah, just before you leave, Roy, Ron, on this. So your Facebook friends are getting antsy. They're feeling
mad at us. They're mad at us.
Oh,
yes, Margaret. I have to give you a few minutes. I have to give you a few minutes with the Facebook group. Yes. They're coming for us.
So Facebook friends. So there's a comment here from Burton Horn. He said the various pronouncements are to stoke divisions. Roy Ron himself appears to have taken the bait when he was asking those questions about the farmers in comparison to mini operators. Try not to perpetuate that narrative as it only serves to create or widen a division between the groups. So that was from Burton. Then we have Pro Lucas Ann who says, but some others want some of the same things the minibus owners are requesting. They call these minibus owners selfish. No, if you want something, do like them. Go and ask for it. Go and take a stand. Fight for what you want as well. So let's see, moving right along. When somebody had asked about the unemployment rate, and I think
25%.
Hold on. Oh, okay. So Doug King Howard said unemployment is 46% among the 16 to 40 years old.
Yeah.
Among what?
Correct.
16 to 40.
16.
How much percent?
46.
46.
And that was in what? 2008?
That's not true.
2018.
Sorry,
I don't believe that.
Yes, it is.
46%?
That was the yeah, between that age group. And the argument is, when that figure was released, the argument by the authorities is that it includes people who are of school age.
I'll call you Tim.
Yeah, because 16 years old, they should still be in school.
Yeah, so 16 to 40. So the argument was among the authorities is that it includes school age people.
Who
But
did
there
that
are
poll?
people.
Who did that survey?
Who did it? Was it from the IMF?
Yes.
Yes, it was from the IMF.
So why
So the
did the IMF
information,
people join the workforce at 16?
well, that's the point I was just about to make.
That is why the
There
IMF
are
included
people-
that.
And remember too
Yeah.
that Minister of
There are
Finance
people who
Camilo
are 16
Gonzalez
at the
said that
workforce.
If you had 40% unemployment in St. Kitts, the island would be burned flat in a day.
It would have to be, but you have
It
more
wouldn't
money.
work. Say that again.
I said you have more money to solve your unemployment issue.
No, but
I think
40% unemployment.
46.
46
And that was
years
that was
ago.
what, 3 years ago?
So it's better now then.
No, it isn't.
Well, more
And the
people have
Minister of
joined the
Finance said
workforce.
then that he was going to challenge the IMF's report, and we're still waiting for him to do so.
Well, even if it's
More
half of 46, 23, that is absolutely unacceptable. Those are the people in the prime of their lives, the height of their productive levels, except for experience, institutional knowledge, and so. When they're strong and supposed to be feeding the economy,
Yes.
16 to 40.
And they have nothing to do.
So what can happen when they reach 60 and 70?
They would get a non-contributory pension.
And these people still get elected?
Of course.
This is
Boy.
failure. You're getting
Well,
rewarded for failure.
that's questionable, isn't it?
Ah.
That's questionable.
No, well, you could use the word elected as loosely as you wish. They're there.
They're there.
They're there. And if I were negotiating with you guys, Roy Ron, I would be very firm and tell the Prime Minister, you all need to take a salary cut. Lead by example. Just don't be the first one to take the vaccination to show the country that they should take it. Take a salary cut. Take a salary cut.
Yeah, you know, tell King Ralph he should take a leaf out of his friends next door's book.
And they could exempt you all from the fuel surcharge too. That won't kill the treasury. That's easy.
To be fair, the proposals which were made in the letter were quite bold. So they might as well go one step further indeed and say, well, you need to take a pay cut.
I don't think that's bold at all. I think it's outrageous. I think it's outrageous.
Well, it is being bold.
With your
But
situation.
sometimes you have to be bold.
With your situation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the situation is beyond dire. How can the leaders of the country not take a pay cut? Or at least remove the allowances? Come on, man.
Well, you don't take a pay cut if you're going to increase the custom surcharge.
Exactly.
Well, you
Yes,
know, let me tell you,
Margaret.
how
Margaret,
many,
if you can squeeze in a few more. Maybe another two.
you have more smuggling, that's all, brother. You have more smuggling. You don't pay no duty when you smuggle.
Well, Doug King Howard says that's not going to happen in SVG. None of them is going to give up anything. You have greed to the max in government.
I'll bet you they do.
Melanius, if you want to jump in, you know. We're not that formal in here at all.
But the other thing that is being,
I listen. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I listened to the arguments as it pertains to the bus situation, and it seems a regional situation and a regional issue. I don't want to tell me it's a problem, because if there's a problem, it needs to be rectified, and perhaps it should be. But there are a few constants throughout the islands as it pertains to the bus system, particularly during the COVID situation, and as the reduction in the number of passengers they can carry. But I've been pointing out some real good statistics that need to be taken into consideration vis-a-vis the number of buses on the road, the routes that they ply, the passengers that they move around on a daily basis. For me, that situation has arisen also in St. Lucia. I think there was a strike last week in relation to that. The bus sector in St. Lucia has not received any relief from the government. Hardly has any sector. Only this week the price of gasoline has increased. But my situation as it pertains to that are twofold. I look at the bus systems throughout the islands as a private transportation system.
Correct.
They are not a coordinated national transportation system. So that's problem number one that needs to be sorted out. Problem number two is the type of buses on the road. And problem number three is the organization or the structure to run these systems. Unless we have a national system, we will continue to run into these situations where we're fighting with government and pulling teeth here and pulling stuff here. What concessions do we get? Who gets what? I think, for example, in the situation with St. Lucia, I've made it loud and clear that we have a private bus system and that it is not a national transportation system, which is what we need. And we need to re-examine the quality and the type of buses we have on the road. You can't, when I hear 650 buses in St. Vincent, I wonder where they're running. And I would like to know, as Dwyer say, how many passengers they're moving on a daily basis and what is the profit and loss for a bus driver per year. For me, when just looking at that off my head from a cost analysis system, it cannot work. And you will constantly have to be begging the government. Well, not begging, because the government should be doing the input in that in relation to duties and helping out in a number of situations, whether it be bus routes or levies or custom duties and stuff like that. So I think it's a situation that need probably another regional institution to put together. But I think individually, these islands need to get to organize themselves along these three lines. That's how I see it.
Well, if it's 600 buses and 25,000 people moving each day, each bus, by my calculus, would be moving 40 people a day. They're not going to become millionaires.
I'm saying is it cost effective?
Yeah, but I don't know what you mean by a national system. You mean publicly owned? Publicly
yes.
owned?
I think we can have a mix because
I don't agree with that.
Yeah,
I don't agree with that, but that's another discussion.
Yeah, because government will have to.
Yeah.
Government has to subsidize the system in order that it become cost effective.
But government subsidize big companies, Chrysler, Ford.
No, I'm not doubting that. No, Dwight, I'm not doubting that. I'm saying government will have to subsidize it.
That's okay.
Yeah,
that's all right.
Yes, I agree with that. So that's why I said it has to be a national system, or it has to be public-private. There has to be some type of cooperation. Otherwise, having it as a private bus system, you're gonna be having teeth and nail all the time. There are no guaranteed structure. You're moving passengers at a particular time, Saturday, Sunday, holiday, and all that sort of stuff. It differs too much. There's not consistency in the system.
Barbados has a dual system.
Yes, a lot of reference have been made to the Barbados system, and they're getting a lot of kudos. So probably there's something that can be replicated and improved.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like to see the private entrepreneurship of our bus system and the culture of it. I like it. Find it very, very fascinating.
Right.
But new vehicles, if not 100% duty free, certainly a substantial concession, because the government is not collecting any duty on any vehicle that you're not buying. You're not buying, so there's nothing to put duty on. So if you do buy, you put a better vehicle on the road. Right. Everybody will make something out of it, including the government. Yep. So it's advantageous for the government to be.
I don't think the Toyota dealership in St. Vincent sold a brand new vehicle in the last 10 years.
In the last what?
10 years.
You serious?
What? Are you serious?
I'm not even joking.
Wow, I am shocked.
Any brand new vehicle that dealership has sold in the last 10 years was sold to a government ministry, a diplomat, or some not-for-profit organization, not to a minibus owner. I own Toyota. I'm a Toyota guy. I have two Toyotas. They are 2001 and 2000. Simply because I can't afford to trade up to buy one of the new Toyotas, which are $160,000.
What's the duty on those things?
When you add up everything. 110%, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's 110%.
And you have to carry that cost.
110%.
And you have to carry that cost to your customer.
You have to carry that cost, yeah. Plus the insurance and that is what, $25,000 a year?
Cost.
It's a lot of money.
Cost is what your fares are controlled by government. You can't pass on
No,
costs.
this is
You have
I
to
see,
eat it.
I can see the macroeconomics of it.
Yeah,
I
the
think-
entire
I think-
system has to be looked at in a holistic manner and redone.
I
Yeah.
think you'll get a package tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think you'll get a package. They must see.
But I agree with I agree with many of the panelists. You know, a comprehensive reform must take place. We need some structure. We need some regulations, some guidelines, improve our services. But government have to play their part in making sure that we can upgrade our delivery of our services.
Yeah.
You know,
Because
there is-
I like the bus system. When I go to St. Lucia and I take the bus, some of my friends look at me and say, "You still riding on the bus?" Yeah, I like the bus. I like the vibe. I like to sleep there. Nobody can really check who am I. And I listen to people's conversation and I looking at this and looking at that. I
Oh,
like
you're
what I
fast.
said.
You're fast. You're fast.
You learn stuff. You learn stuff. You learn stuff. You feel the people. You get to the heartbeat of the country. You understand what he's talking about, what the lady talking about. You know.
And the bus people name their buses and put little designs and customize them. And so, I mean, it's, I love
Sorry.
that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it has to
Okay.
be done properly.
Yes.
Yes.
We're backing you, Roy Ron. We're backing you.
No. It's for all of
thanks
us.
for the contact and the connect.
Yeah, but I'll give you the
All
contact.
of us. You have 600 buses.
Uh-huh.
They are maybe
650, so.
close to 15 or 16 years old. My question that I'm asking us to take into account, in addition to all the issues of rationalizing routes and fuel and so on, what happens to those vehicles when they have reached the end of their useful life? Where do you put them? How do you dispose of them? What happens to the tires that those buses use? Buses change tires 3 or 4 times a year. Where do you put those tires?
more than that.
What happens to your used oil? Where do you put your used oil? I'm raising that because that is an opportunity. It's not a problem. It's an opportunity for you guys as business owners of the vehicles that create solid waste to get involved in recycling your waste with economic revenue source, to stand on a revenue stream, to stand on, so you're not totally dependent on putting bodies in your buses. But you do something now that addresses the common, the broader national good. You're recycling waste because you are a major contributor to waste in the island. And you accept the responsibility to try to do something about it, which will generate income for you. It makes you much more attractive as a business partner, either to the government or to other private businesses. We can talk about that too.
Yeah. Good point. I think.
Yes, very good point.
And they send stuff down to Trinidad, metal, to be recycled. I think
that's
there's a recycling unit in Trinidad.
Right in the region.
Yeah.
Yes.
Malika said she sent her apology. She couldn't join us tonight. She has.
Guys, I'm gonna have to take my leave now. But
okay, man.
Thank you
Okay,
very
well,
much
thank
for
you
your
for
feedback and your
joining.
contribution.
Thank you for joining us, Roy Ron, and we will certainly be following up to hear what happens and the outcome of this situation. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, have a good one. So.
Bye, man.
Right. So Malika sends her regrets. She can't join us tonight. She has a family emergency, and that situation has to be taken care of. Right. So of course she misses us and we miss her.
Talking in a very groovy, sexy voice. I cannot hear what you're saying. Maybe it's my age and I'm getting deaf.
Okay, let me get out of this.
Taking me in another direction.
Take 2. Malika sends her regrets and her apology for not being able to join us this evening. She has a medical emergency in her family, so that situation has to be dealt with. But of course, she misses us and we miss her too. And we just want to hail up all our people on Facebook. Margaret, if you can squeeze in a couple more of those comments,
Sure.
please. We get really up tonight for leaving them out. So
All right.
a couple more.
Okay, so
And
Laurel Davis says, another concern is that if these van drivers stop, it would be a disaster because no jobs to replace and they can't make it on government welfare. Government needs to supplement for sure. SBG needs a severe financial overhaul. In a crisis, have education revolution, but no jobs or employment either. St. Vincent is in a financial crisis. And then Burton was responding to Adriana and he said, I want to make it clear that I am in full support of the minibus operators. What I want to see them do is unite with one another and other groups and organizations across the country. And then Laurel came back and in response to Athi's comment about, you know, vehicles and recycling and that stuff. She said, St. Vincent has huge issues as well with disposal of old vehicles. You should make a deal with if import of newer vehicles, then with that country, I guess she's saying that, you know, if you importing from a country, you should make a deal with them disposing of the equipment when it gets old. She said Japan should take amount of old scrap metal at a cost.
Trinidad does, man. We have an outlet in Trinidad.
it's a business, yeah. It's a business.
It is of course.
Big business. We need to seek to keep the business here, not to send it back to Japan.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Pro Lucas likes Athi's idea of recycling.
Yeah, man, I like Athi's ideas too. Not only that,
Yes.
a lot of his ideas I like.
Oh yes.
Athi's an oracle.
We need to find a way of implementing.
He look like he's sleeping, you know.
I have a feeling he's wide awake.
Oh, okay. I just want to
deep
make sure.
thought.
Oh.
Deep thought. You don't come up with those
Okay,
ideas.
Running a COVID certified
thinking.
property is hard work.
Yeah, I
It is
imagine.
24/7 hard work.
I
And
can
Yeah.
just imagine.
it is. So
And in the
yeah,
midst of, in the midst
if
of
I
it
drop
all, you have,
asleep, it's because I need to.
Okay.
midst of it all, you have to ensure that you keep safe.
Yes.
Right. Yes, I just want to make a public service announcement to thank GTM, the viewers, the listeners who are there with us on GTM, our viewers and listeners on Facebook. Gosh, we are here for you guys. So we take Willix tonight and we just wanted to continue participating in our discussion. As we talk about COVID managed property, you know that we have gone warp speed from infections to vaccinations. We are now at the stage where I don't think it's any different in any country here in the region where the population is being told, go out and get your jabs. Gosh, we're playing jab in the Caribbean. Okay, I have to laugh. Because in Grenada, when Carnival come on, we like to play a wicked jab, you know? There's actually a song about that in Grenada, playing a wicked jab. And right now, it's all about jab across the region. You see various people from prime ministers to healthcare workers to everybody being vaccinated. And there are some concerns about the vaccines because they have not gone through the long testing process where data about side effects or adverse effects can be gathered and can be shared with the population and can be corrected more than all, so that you can see something is working, you can change it, you can test something else, not just change it, but to change, and every time you make a change, you have to test. And I had a conversation this week along with Suspect Martin with the head of the representative of the WHO in the region, who also is the representative for PAHO. Because a lot of people don't know it, but PAHO actually preceded the WHO, and then the became the parent. So he is the representative for the WHO in the region, Dr. Yekaris Gebre. Sorry, I keep mispronouncing the name, Yekaris Gebre. And he shared some information with us about the testing of the vaccines, which left me feeling rather uncomfortable, despite the fact that they have said it is safe. But the data, the gathering of the data has not been spread over a long enough period to get the side effects, to get the adverse effects, to go back in the lab and fix and test and fix and test. There was no time to do that process. So it's tested at the level of the cells. And they say, yeah, man, we're good. Emergency, we need to go out, we're going with this. And that's the kind of impression I got. I don't know how you felt about this conversation, but I felt that this was it. Hurry up and come up with something, put it out there, and if a dirt. Because we just have to achieve this herd immunity at all costs. And that's another side of it, which bothers me a lot. But it's the same thing we did with slaves when we stopped treating people as people and started treating them as commodities, So here it is now on a much wider scale than even the African slave trade. Because the entire world has now become a commodity. Or everyone, all of you, go out with herd immunity. This is the only way we are going to be able to stop this virus. Get inoculated. Yeah. We have 177 different types of vaccines out there. Choose one. One of them must work for you. Take it. And there is just this rush, which I think is rushing ahead of caution. But because the emphasis is not on individuals, the emphasis is on herd immunity. It's like a stampede. Those who get trampled in the melee, too bad for you. But we all need to get out. And I'm getting this kind of urgency, which is going past caution with these vaccines. And personally, I'm feeling uncomfortable about it, because while the intent and the test would have shown that, look, this is perfectly safe, we can go ahead and do it. We don't know for sure because the period of testing hasn't been long enough. And Dr. Gebre announced, he said that, he admitted to that, but he said it's an emergency. And the process, they had to short circuit the process so we could get ahead of the virus, get the herd immunity, because really and truly right now, there's no other way. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I'd love to hear your response. Everybody quiet or silence everybody.
No, you talk. When you talk, we listen. You're our boss. We have to listen to you.
No. All of you are my boss. All of you tell me.
No.
Uh-huh.
No. You are the leader of the group. Well, each of us has his or her opinion, as does everyone. I've made up my mind. There are 2.5 million people who have been killed by COVID. 139 million people have been vaccinated.
177, the count is up.
None dead yet.
The way that is
I can take my chances with that. Well, I don't even want to get into that debate. I'm taking my vaccination. Who wants to take? Who don't want to take, don't take. I'm not even making an argument of it with anybody.
But I like the way you say it. I like the way Dwyer says it. Who wants to take it, take. Who don't want to take it, take. But that's kind of not the option out there. The option is go take it.
You see, one of the problems is, and I think this is why I circularized that thing by Ambassador Ron Saunders today to the group. Now, it may be that he's carrying out a mission, but there has to be a concern that we don't get left behind in terms of achieving this, what they call herd immunity.
Herd immunity.
Yeah, if we get behind in that, it could really cause our economies and our lives to lag for 2-3 years longer than those other countries. So this is a very tough situation. And I am very close to the former chief medical officer in St. Kitts, who is a very conscious person in matters cultural, ethnic, historical, everything. Highly qualified, highly experienced, and I'm comfortable. I am comfortable. I wouldn't say I'm 100% comfortable, but I am far more comfortable with the notion of taking it than the potential consequences of not, especially given my condition, my asthma and stuff like that, and my age, of course. I will take it. You know,
I feel like,
yeah, that's just me.
yeah. Like,
I am.
Go ahead, Guevara.
I am also at that stage as well where it's not a discussion I'm having anymore. I say I am also of the holy position that if people want to take it, they take it, and if they don't want to take it, they don't take it. I am going to take it when it's offered to me. But I'm not going to be annoyed with someone who says, well, I'm not taking it for X, Y, or Z.
Exactly.
And also, there's going to be a lot of litigation that's going to come out of it, because I shared, those of you who are connected to me on Facebook would see that I shared an article this afternoon where employers in the UK are beginning to put clauses in their employment contracts that says no jab, no job, basically. And of course, there are going to be legal issues around that. The talk at the moment is that it is legal to do so. You are allowed to say that. But of course, people are going to challenge that sort of thing before the courts and whether or not it's constitutional or it has human rights issues and all that sort of thing around it. But I think that more and more you're going to see that sort of thing where countries are going to say as well, if you don't have a vaccine, you can't fly here. You can't vacation here. You can't enter. That sort of thing.
You can't board the plane.
You can't board some aircraft might get to that stage where you would need to show a vaccination passport to be able to board the plane. It's going to be a personal choice. I was having a discussion with a friend of mine yesterday who doesn't want to take the vaccine. And the discussion was, because this person loves to travel. And it got to the point where I said, what are you going to do if you have a holiday, because they have a holiday booked for a certain destination this year? And I was like, if that country turns around and says, you can't come here if you don't have a job. And the reply was, I changed my destination. Again, that's a personal choice. So there are choices all around.
How is your friend going to get there? How is your friend going to get to that other destination?
Well, it might be a situation where the aircraft he's flying with is not going to say, you have to have a vaccine. It might just be the country that says you have to have a vaccine.
Well, I would doubt that.
I don't know of any airlines at the moment who are saying you have to have a jab to. I don't know of any. There might be.
Not at the moment.
Who are saying not at the moment, yes. And I don't think I'm wondering if that would be the case by summer, because I think they would be hard pressed to make that policy if the majority of people are not vaccinated. Because, for example, it would be unfair for Emirates, for example, to say to me that I can't board a flight to Dubai unless I'm vaccinated when I am not eligible as yet in the first place. I am currently ineligible to have the vaccine because of my age and the fact that I have no underlying health conditions that are known. So my health service is saying, no, you can't have it as yet. So for Emirates to say to me, if I wanted to go to Dubai tomorrow, that you can't board would be grossly, manifestly unfair, if you see what I mean.
Yeah,
So
I
it would
do.
have to
That's
be a
why I said
situation
not
where-
now.
Not now.
That's why I
yeah.
said not now. Yes.
Yeah. But in terms of I've stopped having the I'm going to vaccinate, I'm not going to vaccinate conversation. I think it's a matter of personal choice.
Yeah,
You know,
I can't be bothered with that.
to me, it's a circular argument, and
Yeah, can't be bothered.
I'm not interested.
Well,
Yeah.
it is a personal choice, but it's a matter of public health. It is personal, but it is about public health. Because vast numbers of people are either going to or not going to have it or not have it. So it's a public health issue. And we raised that issue with the WHO PAHO man. You say, what about the underlying conditions? All of a sudden, WHO and PAHO are no longer highlighting underlying conditions. And he admitted that, yeah, they should, and so forth, they should get back to that. And so what about building individual personal immunity? Y'all used to talk about that back in January last year, no longer. So there's a kind of a filtering out of the real public health considerations of the virus. And that is startling and disturbing. But there's a good reason why they're filtering it out. Some of these vaccines aggravate, and my brother Dwyer, what I'm going to say now is very personal to you. Asthma is aggravated by the Zeneca vaccine. Have your doctor investigate it. I have had several of my physicians tell me so. So talk with your friend and find. That's one of the reasons why AstraZeneca is not certified for use in the United States. Another reason it is not certified for use, it is not really good for anybody over the age of 65. And the US, as you know, made a very solid push for looking after the frontline workers and the elderlies. The Pfizer and the Moderna have no data that show that they would be interfering with or compromising the elderlies, but the AstraZeneca does, which is why it was not licensed for use in the United States. So this is not to argue for or against vaccine. That's not the argument. The argument or the discussion, I believe, is, are we following the established protocols for public health? And my conversation, as I listened to this gentleman with Beverly in that interview, is that we're not. Is that even the World Health Organization and the PAHO have abandoned what have become standard protocols and procedures of public health, like testing the vaccine. The AstraZeneca came from an ape. The original virus came from an ape. It was genetically modified to create the first AstraZeneca vaccine. That the problem arose, the difficulty and the challenge in terms of the management of the thing arose when it became clear that the manufacturing capabilities in the UK were woefully inadequate to supply the demand. So they subcontracted the largest manufacturing entity in the world in India for this pharmaceutical business. But guess what? Guess what? That initial modified vaccine, which was AstraZeneca, which had a test efficacy of 65%, well published globally. When they subcontracted the manufacture of that vaccine to the Indian company, they lost control of it. They lost control of it, and everything that that gentleman said to us in the conversation, either deliberately or inadvertently, reveals that there are further modifications being made to the vaccine being manufactured in India that are not known to the original AstraZeneca, or that are different from, that make it a different vaccine. And guess what? There has not been the time to conduct the full range of protocols and procedures for testing these constantly modified vaccines that are being manufactured in India. However, those are the vaccines that are now being tested on us.
Yes, and whether they're manufactured in India or elsewhere, he says the WHO will approve the facility. So they'll go and check and ensure that the lab, that wherever it's being manufactured, meets the WHO standards for manufacturing, but they do not check the product. And at the level of the manufacturer, it could be because of cultural laws, it could be because of other laws, because especially Dwyer and Guevara would know, as you go around the world, certain ingredients are not allowed in certain countries. So if situations like that or something else comes up, the manufacturer would say, okay, we can't use fever grass, we're going to use mint. And then that is not tested to see if you're going to get the same result from the mint as you get from the fever grass. So that area is wide open. But it is accepted as an AstraZeneca vaccine because they have the contract with AstraZeneca to prepare it. And he said it's at the local level, at the country level, that the regulators have to decide whether or not they're going to take it. But it's the AstraZeneca vaccine which is being distributed under the COVAX facility, granted that it's only 20% of the required volume that the countries will get. But it's the regulators at the local level that have to decide whether or not they are going to accept this product. Just like the US rejected it, a country can reject it if they feel like they're not comfortable with it, enough with it to roll it out for their people. So these are the issues, the argument has long gone past whether or not you're going to take it or not take it. The argument is there are 177 different types of vaccine out there. Who is going to ensure that you get the right one?
I think in my case, it might, because everyone has questions. You have questions about it. I happen to know that in my trust, my health, my National Health Service trust is at the moment administering Pfizer only. So at the moment, I'm happy with that. I don't know if by the time they get to me in the autumn, if they would still be administering Pfizer. But I think any smart individual would probably, when you're invited to your appointment, would need to make inquiries, and ask questions about which vaccine you're getting, and what are the possible side effects given what any health conditions you might have. Germany has also refused AstraZeneca. So, I find it really weird as well that AstraZeneca is developed by Oxford University, but it doesn't seem to be widely distributed in the UK.
Yeah. Because that one is being distributed among countries like those in the Caribbean that are part of the COVAX facility. The countries who don't have the money to buy, so as a first rollout, you're getting this at no cost to you, no cost to the country. So
I think, I think also that, I think also the requirements for storing the vaccines are also a factor in that. the AstraZeneca vaccine does not require the same level of the same temperature that the Pfizer vaccine requires. And so that's part of the reason that, you know, it was easier to send that to places that may not be able to put the structure in place to have these freezers that are what, 40
Right.
degrees below zero to do that. And then again, it's one shot, isn't it? Is it one shot? Is
Two.
No,
there
that one is
two
All of them are
shots as
two.
well? There are 2 shots, no,
Except
no.
Johnson.
No,
Except
Johnson
Johnson.
Johnson.
yeah.
Johnson is one shot.
I am going to take the vaccine, but I have decided to wait on Johnson & Johnson. So I'm waiting for the emergency approval on Johnson & Johnson as well. That's going to be my choice. When it becomes available, I don't know when that will be. But I mean, right now, if I wanted to get Pfizer or Moderna, both are available to me. I mean, it was available to me since the beginning of the year. I just didn't take it because I was waiting on J&J. So,
And
and again, there are multiple vaccines out there, and they're all different technologies. And I think that, people should decide, which one works for them best. And there's certain things that are known, and the FDA in this case here does have a site for reporting any incidents, which is why, for example, in the beginning, they knew that people who have severe allergies, for example, the Pfizer vaccine was not recommended for them because they had reactions to it, and they were told. They didn't give it to pregnant women in the beginning for the simple reason that the vaccine was never tested on pregnant women. They're not running those tests, although some pregnant women have gotten them and they haven't had any reactions. So on populations on which it was not tested, it was not given to initially, but they are running tests on them at this point to see what will happen. So, like with any other medication, I mean, everything comes with side effects. And again, it's up to you to weigh your choices, to decide, which gamble you want to take. Do I want to take a gamble with COVID? I can't guarantee that if God forbid, if I got it, I can't guarantee that I would get a light case of it or that I will even survive it, so either way, it's a risk
yes, and
you have to take. So
yeah, we know that all of those things have to be put in the balance and weighed. But go ahead, Cyrus, while we're wrapping up.
Yeah, to I forget the one of the island of the Caribbean island, Saint Martin today, and they made the test for them before they entered the country. And I think that the tests, more countries are more focused on the test and then on the vaccine. And I think that negative tests to travel, then on the vaccine. Personally, I saw yesterday that 11% of the American population has been vaccinated, something like that, and they try to have 1.5 million a day, which means the vaccine is moving in the United States. And based on this situation, I think that personally, I'm waiting, and I might be in the group who didn't take who doesn't take the vaccine. I think for me is to have
I think Cyrus's internet has been giving him
I
some.
think it's an obligation for everybody. If you think that you are at risk, you
Cyrus, your internet is giving us some trouble tonight, but we are out of time. If anyone has a quick comment that they want to make, Cyrus, your
Yeah,
internet.
I just wanted,
That is crazy.
yeah, there was just one quick thing in response to travel. Qantas Airlines was the first airline to announce that they will require international travelers to have the vaccine.
That's a South Asian airline.
Australia's national airline.
Australian, yeah. So I don't. Well, who went to Australia?
You never know. You never know. They want to go chase some deadly spiders or.
Well, I'll tell you, Australia, they're having the Australian tennis championships now before full audiences. So maybe a lot of people would like to go to Australia.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I was just being facetious. New Zealand is also doing very. New Zealand is also doing very well. A friend of mine is currently there, and they're having parties, and bars are open, and they have a nightlife going on.
Yeah.
But they have a very rigid quarantine system upon entry.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
There is just a lot of things to learn, a lot of things to know. And at the end of the day, whichever vaccine you take, if your body cannot trigger that immune response, you're still up the creek without a paddle. So you have to ensure that what you're doing is right for you, whether you're going to go for any vaccine or you're going to go for no vaccine. But that is the part which I believe we should work on, like Devara, like Dwyer, like myself, and others. We should not make it an issue if someone wants to take or not take the vaccine.
Thank you.
It is really irrelevant, Make it a personal choice. And leave it at that. Guys, we've had a very interesting evening this evening, looking at the situation in Haiti, looking at the situation with the van, bus, taxi, private public service providers. And that is an issue that I think needs more than just being addressed now. It needs to be fixed right across the region. Thank you guys for your company. You're always good company as usual, full of knowledge, full of stuff. I love talking to you guys. I learned so much. So those on Facebook, those on GTM Radio, thank you more than all for joining us, because we're here for you. And we also learn a lot from our viewers, when they participate and throw back information at us, we get a lot there as well. So until next week, Thursday, same time, same place, God's willing, when we get together again for more on Metro Chat, you have yourself a fantastic, a fabulous weekend. Those of you in the snow, it don't matter how you like the snow, you have to keep warm. So keep warm, keep safe, have a great weekend, have a great weekend. We get together again next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Peace and
Take
love.
care.
Peace and love.
Bye.
Night,
Adios.
everyone.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.